morning, church. Thanks for watching our live stream. If it's your first time watching us, make sure to connect with us on foothillonline.org. We're going to go into a time of worship, so open up your hearts and get ready.
It's all about you, Jesus. I'm sorry.
hope you enjoyed the time of worship. You can continue to worship by giving on our website at foothillonline.org or text the number down below. We're going to get ready to get into the Word with Pastor Steve.
Hey church, this is Pastor Steve. Hope you're doing well. This morning I want to introduce to you my younger brother, Pastor Tim Nalley. He's an awesome man of God. He's an awesome husband to his wife, awesome father to his kids. And this morning he's going to teach us how to lead our families well and how being on Team Jesus, we can play that position well. So let's listen in as my younger brother, Pastor Tim, speaks to us this morning. God bless.
Hey, hello, church. Man, what an honor it is to be able to speak with you. My brother, your pastor, Steve, has asked me to bring something that's kind of near and dear to my heart. I'm the men's pastor here at the Father's house. And a lot of the interaction that I have with the men, especially during this time, there's just been some questions that men have had. There's fearful questions. There's questions of future. There's questions of finances. There's just a lot going on right now. And so anyway, my brother, your pastor, asked me to maybe speak to that issue. You know, how do we as men, how do we lead our families in times of uncertainty? How do we stay in control when it feels like everything's out of control? So I just want to take a few minutes and talk to you about that. I want to start off by telling you a story. I remember being in elementary school, and I used to love to play football during recess. And so I had a friend of mine who was a grade older than me. He was in the 6th grade and I was in the 5th grade. His name was Anthony. And I'll never forget, man, Anthony and I were just a great team. He was a great quarterback. I was a great catcher. And so we'd go out, and anytime we picked and chose teams, I was always on Andy's team. And Anthony would always throw me the ball, and we just had a great time. But something happened when we graduated from elementary school to junior high. Something unique happened. Well, first of all, Anthony went first because he was a grade older than me. Well, when I came into junior high in 7th grade, Anthony was already in 8th grade. And I remember being in PE, and Anthony was in my PE class. They split us up into teams, and we were going to play flag football. And I thought, oh man, this is going to be great. It's going to be a reunifying of two men who know how to play the game. And man, I was excited about it. Well, as it turned out, I got put on a different team than Anthony's team. So many times we would play each other, but we never got to play together. So the team I was on, they didn't know me. They never threw me the ball. I was the 7th grader. I was the new kid in town. They didn't have any trust or hope that I would catch the ball and actually make any yardage. So I found myself during PE wishing that I could be on Anthony's team. Well, as luck would have it, one day the team I was on was about to play the team Anthony was on. And Anthony's team was short a player, and we had an extra player. Well, my team unanimously decided, because they had never thrown me the ball, they'd never seen me in action, they didn't feel like I was a contributor to the team. They literally said, well, why don't you go and play on that team? And I thought, oh, this is it. This is it. Me and Anthony back together again. We're going on tour all over again. And it was the first offensive play that we had, where Anthony was the quarterback and yours truly was the wide receiver. And so Anthony said, hike. Man, I beeline for the end zone. I made a post pattern. And when I looked over my head, Anthony knew where I was going and the ball was already en route. I placed my hands up in the air, and it was like something out of a movie. And that ball fell right in my hands, and I made a touchdown. I was hooting and hollering and screaming. And Anthony and I were doing high fives, the whole team. Well, guess what my team was doing? Well, the first guy comes over, he goes, hey, you never played like that for us. I was like, you never threw me the ball before. Isn't that crazy how being on a team or being picked for something of value, something of purpose, doesn't that feel just so good? I mean, I've been on teams before where you go to recess, two people are picked as captains, and I'm the last guy they pick. That nobody wants to be the last guy picked. It's just not in our nature. I hated the way that felt. And I'm sure you can think of times in your life when, you were picked for the team or you weren't picked for the team, or you got the scholarship or you didn't get the scholarship, or you ended up at the university you wanted or you didn't get. I mean, all frames of our life where we either made the team or we didn't make the team. And I think this is important for us to wrap our mind around, because if you think about it, whose team are we on when it comes to leading our families? Whose team are we on when we decide we are going to lead well and lead our families? This is a unique question. And I don't know that any of us have ever thought through this mindset before. I want to look at a guy in the Bible. His name's Joshua, and of course he's very famous. I don't know who's watching. Most people who spent their time in some time in church, maybe grew up in church, you've heard of the name Joshua. For those of you who he may be new to you, he was a young man who raised up under Moses' direction, and he followed Moses. And there was many times where we would see Moses seeking God's face, and Moses would leave and Joshua would just stay in the presence of God. There was times where Joshua would just truly pursue God's best for him. And so Joshua was a great man because, in fact, Joshua was one of the 12 spies that were sent into the promised land. And he was the one, him and Caleb, who came back with a good report. They came back saying, this is great. This is what God has for us. This is the promised land. Let's take what God has given us. So we're going to look at the story of Joshua, because you may or may not know, but Moses actually never entered the promised land. But in fact, Joshua led the next generation from out of the wilderness into the promised land. And there's this unique experience that Joshua has. You see, Joshua had taken a cue from Moses, and he sent his own 12 spies into the land before they went. This was years and years later. He sent in spies, and they went and looked around, and they did all their thing. They came back with a report, and Joshua was getting ready to come up with a plan on how are we going to begin taking over this promised land. Because it wasn't just, okay, set up your tents, we're good to go. There were towns and people and enemies that had to be fought and battles that had to be won. And the first battle was going to be with the town of Jericho. Now, Joshua had sent out his spies, like I said. He'd been looking around, and he finds himself kind of looking out over Jericho. And I'm sure in his mind, he's thinking through the battle strategy. He's thinking through what we're going to do. He's got all these things going on in his mind. And the Bible says he comes upon a hill. And in Joshua chapter 5, verses 13 and 15, we have Joshua walking up on a hill, and this unique thing happens to him. I'm going to read this to you. Joshua 5, verses 13 and 15. I'm going to read to you from the New Living Translation. It says, when Joshua was near the town of Jericho, he looked up and he saw a man standing in front of him with sword in hand. Now get this picture. Joshua, mighty warrior, got his sword. He sees this man on a hill, and so Joshua gets a hold of his sword and he goes to approach this man. And Joshua says, he went up to him and demanded, are you friend or foe? Are you for me or are you against me? Are you on my team or are you on their team? He was asking a question of this man standing there. And this was the man's response. Neither one. I am neither friend nor foe. I am not on this team or that team. I'm not going to choose one of those, which is strange. And so Joshua's standing there with a sword. He's saying, tell me who you're with. Are you with? And this guy is saying, neither. No. The answer to your question is no, which is bizarre. He said, I am, not Joshua, but this man, he said this, I am the commander of the Lord's army. And at this, Joshua fell with his face to the ground in reverence. And Joshua said, I am at your command. Joshua said, what do you want your servant to do? And the commander of the Lord's army replied, take off your sandals, for the place where you are standing is holy. And Joshua did as he was told. I want you to get this picture. This mighty man of God, Joshua, who has sought God's face for all this time, is now going into this battle for the first time, leading his people for the first time into battle. And he finds this man and he wants to know, are you on my side or are you on their side? And this man turns out to be Jesus Christ himself. They call this a Christophany. There's actually moments in the Old Testament where Jesus himself appeared to men of the Old Testament. And this was one of those moments where Jesus himself appears at the host of the Lord's army. And he says, you want to know what side I'm on? Neither. But in fact, Jesus said, I'm not interested in you inviting me to be a part of your story. Now catch this. Jesus said, I'm interested in you being a part of my story. I want you to get that is a unique, absolute crucial moment. Because when it comes to leading our families, like Joshua trying to lead the children of Israel, when it comes to leading our families, it's not about, Jesus, are you on my side? It's really about, Jesus, have I placed myself on your side? Have I put myself in your charge? Have I given you control of my life? This isn't about us begging or asking God to come and play a cameo experience, a cameo appearance in the movie called My Life. This is about us saying, Father, I am here and you have written a story for me. You have written out chapter after chapter, a book for my life. And I am here to say, put me in. Insert me into the story of this thing called earth. Use me for the purpose and the plan and the position that you have made me for. This isn't us saying, Jesus, come help me lead. This is about us saying, Jesus, make me the leader you've already designed me to be. This is crucial, men. If we don't wrap our minds around this understanding, then we will find ourselves wanting over and over again. This is so important that we get this, that we understand. This is not about begging Jesus to come and help us lead our families. This is about us having a paradigm shift, a new way of thinking, a new mindset that says, I know that God has placed me in a place. And because I am submitted under his authority, and because I have chosen to be on his team, not beg him to be on my team, because I have chosen to be in his plan, not beg him to be a part of my plan, but because I have laid my life in his hands, I can't go wrong. This is huge, man. This is huge. We need to understand this, that when God's heart for us is greater than your own heart for you. God's plans for you as a leader of your home is much bigger than your small, minute imagination can get together. God has something much bigger planned for us, but it all starts with this understanding that I am being invited to be a part of Christ's story. I am not inviting Jesus to be a part of my story. It is crucial that we get that understanding. So, To lead our families well, it all starts with the recognition that Jesus is the captain of this team, and we are being invited to be on his team. Excuse me. So why is Jesus saying, or why is saying yes to Jesus? Why is saying yes to this invitation? Why is us saying, yes, I want to be a part of this? Why is this so important? Well, listen, men, if you're going to lead your families, you can't give away what you don't have. You cannot tell people how to follow your lead when you haven't figured out how to follow his lead. It's important that we understand that if we're going to begin this process, it starts with us recognizing I am following Christ. And when I turn to my family, I'm saying, follow me as I follow Christ. In order for you to lead your family spiritually, you must lead yourself spiritually. In order for you to be the leader that your family is looking for, you must be the leader that you are looking for. In order to lead your family spiritually, you must lead yourself spiritually. Your spiritual life will strengthen, listen closely, your spiritual life will strengthen or weaken all your other relationships. Your spiritual health, your relationship with God will strengthen or weaken, depending on where you're at, all the other relationships around you. Our relation vertically affects all of our relations horizontally. So when that comes to your wife, what does that look like? Well, did you know, according to research, that the third top thing your wife desires is spiritual intimacy? Is the idea that we are intimate with our Father, not just a bland, just a paint over, I read my Bible, I pray every once in a while, but that we are intimate with God. That is something that our wives desire. Top three. The first one is unconditional love and acceptance. The second thing your wife desires is communication and emotional intimacy. But the third thing is spiritual intimacy. When you are intimate with God, your relationships with your wife, they flourish. Now I'm going to say something, and if you're taking notes, I want you to write this down. Your relationship with your wife will never outperform your relationship with God. Now I want you to think that through. Spend a few minutes and think about that. Your relationship with God will never succeed or exceed or be better than or perform better than your relationship with God. Your relationships with people around you are all subservient to your relationship with God. Now, this is a great thing to look at. It's a great mirror to look at in your own life. You need to ask yourself, what are my relationships like? And if you have strong relationships, well, then your relationship with God is probably a strong relationship. But if most of your relationships are in shambles, most of your relationships are very hard to navigate, it could be that your relationship with God is suffering. So this is very important for us to bring our wives into a place where they understand we truly love them, want the best for them. And I know it doesn't make sense, but when you pursue a relationship with God, you are pursuing a relationship with your wife. So that's the first thing we can do is pursue it. When we pursue that relationship, that spiritual intimacy with God, all of our other relationships are affected with your wife and your children. Listen, your children, no one else has the honor or the privilege of introducing your children to the Almighty God. As a father, as the priest of your home, as the leader of your house, you and you alone can introduce your children to your God. Now, you might be a great craftsman. You may have a lot of money. You may have a lot of buildings. You may be thinking, I've got these treasures, these earthly treasures that I've raised up, and I am going to raise these up and hand these off to my children. I'm here to tell you today that nothing will come close to you introducing your children to your God. for you to recognize and show your children that a spiritual intimacy with their Father will set them up for success. That their understanding of who God is, their understanding of this entire world based on a God view, a biblical worldview is yours to give your children. And nothing will come close. Nothing will come close than you doing that. Nothing else you give your children will match. Where does it all start? Well, it starts with you pursuing spiritual intimacy, a relationship with your Father and your God. Second thing I want you to know, your spiritual life will impact your integrity in the home. Your spiritual life will impact the integrity in your home, your own integrity. Now, I want you to know this, if you don't know it already, but your wife and your kids are asking the question, who is this man who is in charge of our family submitted to? Who is this guy taking his marching orders from? Who is this guy when he comes to a decision, when he makes a decision that none of us know why he's making that decision, or he has a particular family rule that we don't understand why? Your children need to know that your integrity, that your decision, that you are accountable to God. Because you may not know it now, but I'm about ready to break some news. Spoiler alert for you. You are not perfect. And when your wife and kids recognize your imperfection, your integrity will come into question. But when a man of God has decided that I am going to serve God, I am going to submit to God, I am going to take counsel from God, when that man makes that decision, even when he's done the wrong thing, he is motivated by doing what God has called him to do. And when your integrity comes into question because of poor decisions, because of things you've done, instead of you trying to stand up and make your own stance and make your claims of why it was a good idea based on your own selfish idea, when you begin to make a declaration and you begin to explain why you made the decision because you read in the Word or you were praying over your children and felt like this was the right thing, when those are your answers, your wife and your children want to submit to that kind of authority. It's very difficult to submit to authority that has no covering. It's very difficult to submit under someone who is not submitted under someone. So men, we must lay our lives and submit our lives to God. And when our integrity comes into question, we know we're doing the best we can. But ultimately, we're going to let God make the decision. So that's something we want to do. The third thing I want you to know is your spiritual life impacts your ability to settle conflict in your family. Your spiritual life, how close you are to God, will help you resolve conflict in your family. If you are not experiencing any conflict in your family, well, just wait a few minutes. Listen, conflict is inevitable, okay? Here's the thing I want you to know. Conflict is inevitable, but destruction is optional. Conflict is inevitable. You're going to disagree. You're going to come into disagreement with your kids, with your wife. Things of these natures are going to happen. You're going to come into conflict. You're not going to understand exactly what to say or how to say it. These things are going to happen. There's no way around it. But the resolution of it, you do not, just because you're in conflict with someone in your home does not mean your home is being destroyed. You, because you're submitted to God, because you're listening to His voice, because you're filtering things through an unconditional love, an unconditional acceptance, an unconditional forgiveness mindset, you're setting your family up for success. You are setting your family up for success, and when conflict comes, and my friend, it will come, because you've decided to be submitted to God, there's a way to navigate through it where no destruction takes place. but in fact, you will grow each other. You will be able to come alongside each other and encourage one another, lift each other up. That's our jobs as leaders of the home. Conflict in your family is inevitable. It's coming. A strong spiritual life gives me, and the one key ingredient, I want you to think about this. The one key ingredient that you get is you will get new character. One key ingredient that comes from this life of submitting to or pressing into or becoming intimate spiritually with your Savior, it produces new character. It produces something in you that you cannot produce on your own. Now, what's character? Well, I've heard integrity has been defined as what you do in the dark or what you do when nobody's looking. I would say character, the true character of what a man is what is his response when he gets bumped. Let me explain that. If I have a glass of water, but it's not a see-through glass, you don't know what's inside of it. All you know is that it's a container. Is it holding water, orange juice, scorpions, spiders? What's in it? Jelly beans? You don't know until I bump it. And when I bump it, whatever's inside comes splashing out. Now, character of a man can be measured when he is bumped and watching what his response is. If your response is anger, then that's probably what's going on in your heart. If your response is denial, that's probably what's going on in your heart. But when somebody bumps you and what comes out is love, what comes out is genuine investigation of what they said, what comes out is something that would edify you and them, well, guess what, my friends? That is new character. And as your relationships go forward, as you grow in your relationship with your wife and with your children, you're going to need new character because new seasons are coming. New things are going to happen. New challenges are coming down the road, and you will need new character. So why should you pursue spiritual intimacy with God? I'm telling you right now, it's because you need to be able to navigate these things in your family's life. You need to have new character. You need new character. I want you to look at this 1 Timothy 6, verses 11 and 12. I'm going to read to you from the New Living Translation. But you, Timothy, now stop right there. My name happens to be Timothy. And so clearly he's talking directly to me. But here's what I want you to do. I want you to put your name in there, okay? I'm going to say, but you, and then you're going to say your name. Are you ready? But you are a man of God. Stop, hold everything. Listen to me closely. You are a man of God. You are a man of God. Let that sit in your spirit. Take ownership of that. You are a man of God. Look at what it says here. So run from these evil things. Pursue, because you're a man of God, pursue righteousness and godly life, along with faith, love, perseverance, and gentleness. Fight the good fight for the true faith. Hold tightly to the eternal life to which God has called you, which you have declared so well before many witnesses. Pursue righteousness. You are a man of God. You have been called to this life. You are the priest of your home. I want you to listen to this. God's design for the family at the very beginning was that that family would take dominion over and conquer this earth. God set a mandate over the family that said this: you are required to take dominion over, go out into, rule and reign this world. Take dominion over the evil one who would try and steal away. Come and take dominion. Raise up children to learn how to fight the enemy, to take dominion over this earth. God's plan was the family would destroy the enemy and further the kingdom of God. That's God's plan. You're a man. You're a husband. You're a father. Or maybe you have influence in different arenas of your life. But you're a man. Guess what? It is God's plan that you succeed. Hear me. It is God's plan that you succeed. It is in God's best interest that the man of God, the husband of God, the father of God, you, my friend, it is God's best interest that you are good at what you do. There is no way God is going to turn his back on you. There is no way he is going to stand on the side and look over his shoulder at you and wish you'd do better. He is standing there anxiously waiting for you to say, help me. Give me the wisdom to raise my children for your glory. Give me the wisdom to speak life over my wife. God, let me see my wife through your eyes. Father, let me see in my children the design and plan and purpose that you have for them. And I guarantee you, God is more interested in you getting that right than you are. Listen, guys, it's time for us to stop hoping. It's time for us to stop wishing we would be better men. It is time for us to, like Timothy, say, I am a man of God, and I will pursue righteousness. I will do these things. I will pray for my wife. I will pray for my children. We will fast together. We will take communion around our living room table. Now, I know what's going on right now in your minds. Men, follow me on this one. You've done this before. You've sat your wife down and you said, babe, we're going to start praying every night before we go to bed. Or you said, you know what we're going to do? In the morning, we're going to wake up early. We're going to read the Bible together. And then you didn't do it. And so your wife said, hey, I thought we were going to read the Bible together. I thought we were going to pray in the morning. I don't know about you. I'm going to be transparent right now, okay? But I've done that. And when my wife questions me, something rises up in my spirit. It's not a good thing. Something rises up like, who did she think she is? Telling me what to do. I didn't take on. So here's what's happening. I know some of you are thinking through all of this. You're going, oh man, the last time I did it was disaster. Here's what you do. This worked for me. I know it'll work for you. You go to your wife. You say, honey, here's what I want to start doing. And pick something that you can actually do. I want to start praying before you go to work. I want to start praying before I go to work. I want to start praying with the family, whatever it is. You pick something where you're going to make it. And by the way, it could be easy as this, man. You can raise your hand first in church during worship. When there's an altar call made, you can grab your wife's hand and you can bring her right down to the altar with you. These are easy ways to lead your family spiritually. But here's what I want you to do. I want you to look at your wife and I want you to say, hon, we're going to start praying more regularly. And then you're going to say this. And I know I'm going to forget. And I know that as much as I want to do this, I know there's going to be days when I feel like I don't have time. So I want you to know right now, I need you to remind me. Now see what happens? What happens now is when she reminds you, you're not mad. You're not ticked off because she's calling you on the carpet. You said you were going to do something, now you're not going to do it. No, you've actually acknowledged, I'm probably going to forget. And I'm going to need you to help me. So could you remind? And when she reminds you, you're thinking, hey, I asked her to do this. She's doing what I asked her to do. This is perfect. So that sets you up for success. But I want you to make a plan to do something. So I'm going to give you some things to do right now. Actually, before this week is over, this is what you're going to do. Actually, before you're done watching this video, after you watch this video, I just want you to lay your hands on your wife, your children, and pray over them. And I don't want you to pray prayers over them. I want you to pray prayers over you. Father, let me be the man of God I need to be. Let my wife have the husband she deserves. Let my children see in me your call on my life. And Father, let me recognize in them your fingerprints. These are the things you can pray over your family. You can do that. Here's another thing you do. Dad, you can fast for your family. You can pick a meal and you tell your family, I'm not eating this meal. I'm praying for my family that I would be the man of God you deserve. These are easy things you can do. And like I said, when this is all over, we come back to church and you're sitting on the front pew or the back pew. Well, actually go to the front. Why is it? It's like you got to come early at church to get a back seat. It's the only place you come early to get a back seat. What's up with that? So why don't you be a trendsetter and move right down to the front? You just fight for those front seats. And then when you're there, men, when worship starts, you be the first one with your hands up. When there's an altar call, you reach over, grab your wife by the hand, and you go down there to the front with her and pray with her. You just set the tone. You can do this, men. You can do this, but it all starts with this. It all starts with you recognizing who you are. Now back to the story. In closing, back to the story that I told you about Anthony, my friend. I want to tell you this. I don't remember much about Anthony. I don't think if this story would have happened in my life, I don't think I would even remember him. But this one story, this one guy named Anthony who had faith in me, who saw in me the ability to do something that he knew I could do. That story has stuck in my heart all these years. If you get nothing else out of this, I want you to get this. I see in you that you are a man of God. I see in you that you have what it takes to be the husband your wife deserves. I see in you that God has gifted you your children. He has blessed you with your children. And guess what? Because He gave them to you, I know beyond the shadow of a doubt, you have everything required to raise those kids for the kingdom of God. I want you to hear me. If you remember nothing else, remember this. You are God's man for your family. God bless you guys.
Thanks so much for joining us today. Make sure to connect with us online and feel free to share this live stream on your Facebook page, and we'll see you next week.